Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to another episode of heartablazepodcast. It's your host Timmy, and we're gonna be talking about Crock'd. So Crock'd is actually a pottery studio. I've been sussing out quite a few different pottery studios over time. It's just that they're pretty pricey, so it's been like an event that I've been really meaning to do. Just pottery in general is something high on my list of things that I've always really wanted to do. Just something draws me to it, and I think I really enjoy it, and I feel like I could be pretty good at it. But it's just something I really, really love. I've done some little bits of like, just like sculpting kind of clay work and hands-on kind of freehand clay work here and there, but not much of it, maybe like 2 sessions. But this is like the first official, and I've always really wanted to do wheel throwing, which is, when they have the spinning wheel and you do the actual like wet kind of clay modeling, molding and stuff. And this was the opportunity. So I booked it early June, and I booked it with Crock'd, and it was mostly to do with one of the promotion they had, and obviously it's just kind of to like promote more classes. Essentially they had a class that was called like glow in the dark pottery wheel throwing session, and yeah, so it was as it is. It's just it's a pottery throwing wheel throwing session, but with like glowing glaze. But they did explain pretty early on as we went in that the glaze that's glow in the dark is more just for like show of like and fun for like the night, with like the mood and everything and the setup, but it won't actually survive the glaze, the firing in the kiln. So it will just turn out to be like neutral, regular kind of like one colored glaze or pottery. But I guess like really it could have been cool if they at least gave us some other kind of like stuff to play with that would actually change the color for the final product. But it's not too bad. It was only about $100, low $100, and you would get a piece for free. Like they'll fire it and do all that for you at the end, and you had 2 hours to play with the whole like process of making the clay, making your piece. So I think I'll just walk you through the night as a sort of way to explain the experience, and you'll know. I rate the experience really high. I think that was like an easy, like at least 9 out of 10 kind of night. Probably 10 out of 10 to be honest. There really wasn't anything to complain about. They had like, so I walked in, I got off the bus, saw them across the road. They were easy to spot. Very clean, very simple design, very nice and warm kind of vibes. The lights were really cool. The design was really cool. The logo is very cool, very eye-catching. Go in, very simple, two studio like sort of locations. So like there's like two spaces. One side was with the entrance. It's kind of like a 3-table setup where you are just like doing the free clay kind of sculpting kind of stuff. And there was a class already going on. And then I kind of wandered into the next room where it was like already kind of like with the black lights and then the setup. And there was like probably like I think four wheels per side, and then 2 wheels on either side, and then the main side on the right was kind of pretty much the demonstration side, and then you had like all the shelvings and all that, and the entrances were pretty much 2 big glasses. So it's very cool. People can probably look in and see what's going on, but you also don't feel like too judged at night because it's a bit more sort of secluded in that sense. I forgot to ask the instructor's name, but she was absolutely lovely. She was very, very good at her job. She was very good with her instructions, very clear, very like paced well enough so it wasn't too slow or too quick, and she was very attentive. And so when I went in, I was like, oh no, I don't really know where to go. And then she kind of popped out from behind the blinds and was like, oh, she's like, you here for this? And then she was like, oh, can I get your name? And then she gave me the name tag, then she gave me the and she remembered it. She was like, oh, she looked at me like with like some of like my lanyard, and she was like, oh, are you the guy who messaged about podcasting? And I said, yeah, I was the one. And she was like, well, let me know if you need anything. Like, do you need any special setup? She was like, did you want a position that was better, like, or do you just want to be here where I allocated you earlier? So they were really accommodating. So kudos to Crock'd for being so cool about this. And as promised, I will send you the video. Just hope that it's up to standard. But no, I had a fantastic night, and I think pretty much everyone there was like on the same energy level. Everyone was really kind to each other and really like easy to kind of get to know and talk to, and really kind, and just, everyone was kind of like in that jokey phase. We're kind of like, that looks so easy, isn't it? And it's not going to be. And then everyone would be like, oh, wow, mine's turning out pretty bad, or like, oh, I'm screwing up. Everyone was pretty straightforward about like talking about their thing, and it was really funny. Anyway, so the process basically starts at that. They offer you can bring your BYO, or you can go around the corner, just around the corner of like the entrance of that particular room. There was actually a little trolley with really icy cold, which is key. Really icy cold mocktails, like in a can, and there's also glasses of water and such. Um, you put on an apron, and I set up my tripod. I set up my Meta AI glasses. Um, and at the beginning, basically, as after everyone arrived, which happened pretty quickly, everyone was really on time for 6:30, which was like kind of rare for Aussies, I feel like. Um, but that's sidetracking. Anyway, and then she started kind of explaining the class, so we all gathered around, and then she took one of the wheels on the side of the right, on the other opposite side, and then started teaching us how to kind of do the process of making a piece. And it's basically, to kind of summarize, if I remember this correctly, essentially you kind of have to really compact the dough first, like the divide into pieces. You kind of compact into a ball, make sure it's nice and compressed, because we don't want air in it, because airs kind of create cracks and issues. And then on a clean wheel, you kind of try to throw it down really hard, but aiming to kind of be as centered as possible. And then you kind of shuffle it and try to move towards the center. Once you're happy with the position, then you kind of go in, and you're kind of trying to kind of essentially kind of squeeze down the sides a little bit to kind of form like a little flat side around the main bowl, to kind of adhere it to the base, because the last thing you want is for it to like wiggle around and then fly off the wheel. And when you're ready, then you kind of get the sponge from the bucket of water that they prepare for you sitting inside the wheel section, and then you kind of squeeze it over generously to kind of really wet your hands as well. And you go in with like a heart shape. And she said you have to sit very close up towards the wheel, and you have to almost lean straight down with your chest kind of almost pointing straight down at the ceramic piece. I mean, the clay. And then you start spinning the wheel at pretty much full speed, and go in compressing it, holding it in place with the heart-shaped hand. And in a way, you're kind of like trying to do like a small cylinder. It's probably the easiest way to explain that. It was very, very hard compared to like just how it's explained. It's way more straightforward when you're just putting it into words. And a lot of people struggled. The two friends I made that was sat next to me towards like sort of later half of the thing, like I was trying to kind of not like talk to too many people, in the sense that because I knew like Meta AI glasses get a bit dizzy if I move around a lot. So I was really focusing on this event to kind of try to avoid doing that myself. And also I tried to like avoid talking to too many people, because then that meant like I had to cut out more things, as much as I like engaging and connecting. But with this particular event, because it's kind of one of the first events I'm really trying to do this, and it's also kind of a different kind of event, I was really trying to focus on all that technical side of stuff, I guess. But yeah, so after that step, then you would essentially go into a step of kind of doing what she said, like a karate chop. So you kind of like use the lower three fingers to kind of pop it inwards and keep the walls like, I guess, straight. And then you kind of use the other hand to go down and kind of flatten it and keep the top. I guess this process is kind of like doing, I guess, like kind of getting it into a really perfect cylinder, especially with the top not being like a dome, but more like a straight flat line. So it's easier to kind of level out as you start to make it into a cup shape. And then after that, you kind of use one finger to still using the other hand to like kind of cup it, and then like one finger to kind of dig a hole in, and you kind of go one knuckle deep and try not to get all the way to the bottom. And you can always kind of like thin it out a little bit more, but you don't want to touch the bottom. Like she said very specifically that there is ways to kind of rectify it if you do kind of break the bottom, like breach the bottom. But also like it's just a little bit more complicated process, so it's better if you don't. And then after that, you obviously keep waiting along like the process, because if it dries, that's the thing that really surprised me, is how quickly the clay dries out. Like it only takes like maybe like 10-second process, and then you'll realize you need more water from the sponge already. And then yeah, you kind of like start keeping your finger straight and kind of bring it inwards, and you kind of press it against the other hand and try to essentially start thinning it out, and then that's where you kind of get the cup. And then you kind of, the next process of that is kind of hooking it a little bit, and you bend it to kind of try to like pull the shape upwards into a taller cup. I think that was the most difficult process, because it often felt like I was just distorting it when it was already looking pretty good, or I just like couldn't really pull it up for some reason, and it would just kind of become wider, and then I would kind of try to like fix it, and I'll cup it a little bit, then it kind of becomes like more like an egg shape with like an enclosed little lip, which just was really strange. But the first two pieces actually ended up coming out really, really good. And in the second piece, I actually got to kind of try, like, I really like those kind of grooves, like the spiral grooves kind of texture on ceramics. So I tried doing that, and that was pretty easy because we had a tool for it, like a little carving tool for it. And then the last two times when I tried to try it within the last, I think it was like the last 30 minutes of the session, of the 2-hour session, things just went really bad. Like I had it almost kind of completely come off the thing, and then I had to clean it, try it again, and then I had the whole process where I was trying to fix the lips, and I tried to cut it, but then like I ended up cutting it, but then not like actually pulling it off, and then it got weirder and weirder and weirder as my hands tried to cup it. Then it just kind of came off the thing again as like a little free bowling cylinder. So yeah, the last two things were basically just sort of like a waste of time, but it was interesting. But yeah, it was really, really fun. It was really cool, and I ended up getting a piece. I was tossing up between whether I should do the first piece or the second piece, because I didn't want to spend extra money, so I just wanted to fire one. And the first piece, because she did help out a decent amount to kind of get there, so it looked really cool. But considering the fact that it wouldn't have any of the neon, like the glow in the dark properties, and it was just kind of thick and kind of short, and then I thought the other piece was a little bit more unique, and it was a little bit lopsided and a little bit thick on one lip and a little thin on the other, but at least it was mostly me, so I thought it would make more sense to bring that home and display on the shelves, or something like that. We'll see how it looks. If it looks really horrible, maybe it probably wouldn't make the shelves, because it then would just be a little bit embarrassing, I guess. We'll see. Because I also feel like I kind of fucked up the base a bit when I was like doing it. Oh yeah, so she was showing also the place, so I guess we'll go back to the first piece. So with the first piece, when you kind of like dipped and like played with the painting and all that, once it was done, next process was basically you use the sponge, and you want to get rid of any water from inside the piece. That's one thing. Next step would be wetting like the wheel only, but the wheel really, really well. Then you get like sort of like a two-handled string, like a wire string, and then you twist it kind of like almost like what you would do with, like, I guess, like flossing, and then you go flush towards the wheel and pull it back, and then it will come off, and then you kind of use the string to kind of lever it so it comes to the side of like the wheel, just so your hands can get under it, and then they have those little platforms for putting your piece on to dry, and then they'll fire it later on. And the two girls I met later on for the night was really, really funny. They really couldn't get it to work, but also like kudos to them, because they had nails, so it made it significantly harder for them to shape things, and they had to use like a sponge. And at one point I kind of was trying to help her with whatever I can, and I had a bit of free time anyway, and I was like, oh, let me try it with the sponge too. And I just said, no, I think yours is definitely way more complicated. I was like, you're not having a good time to begin with, like in terms of like techniques, but like using a sponge seems like it's way harder. But yeah, and the teacher offered like 2 really good pieces for them to take home at the end, but they said like, no, it's all good, like, I kind of want to like take home what I make, and we didn't make anything tonight in the end, but like they took home the experience. So I thought like that was really cool of them, because like they just felt like they was explaining like it's kind of what the experience is about, and I don't want to like take home something fake, like that's not me, and like I don't want to be like that, and I just thought that was really cool of them. But yeah, and I connected with them on Instagram and stuff, and they apparently do content creation too, so that was pretty cool. Yeah, and then at the end of the night, we just kind of like did a questionnaire. We scanned QR code, and then we kind of wrote down our name and then chose the piece and put it together on a tray, so they can kind of do all the firing and all that later on, and they'll contact us to collect it. So there'll be a short on that when it happens. I'm guessing it's going to be a few weeks usually, probably because there's a lot of stuff for them to do. And I thanked her for the night afterwards and said that she was incredible, and exchanged information with the two girls, and then got my stuff ready and tried to clean up as much of the stuff, which did not work. By the time I got home, I looked at my tripod and everything. I was like, wow. I tried to wipe it down, but actually it was really messy. Oh, one thing I definitely really want to mention: if you're going to this event, do not wear white pants. I had no idea why I chose white pants. Go with jeans or dark pants. Black pants probably ideal. Most people actually wore darker stuff. I think I was thinking it'd be really cool for the video to be very eye-catching under black light, wearing white mostly. So I ended up with like pretty much like an all white kind of uniform. And I kid you not, like she did demonstrate, like when she was demonstrating, she did like wipe on her like apron a lot to clean up, because some processes your hand have to be pretty clean for. And I kid you not, my apron was gross by the end of it, and I got streaks on my pants, and that's when I realized, and I was like, oh no. But she did mention it was really easy to wash off, and it was. I put it in like my washing machine for like a 15-minute cycle, and it came all right out. And everything else, like my phone, my Meta AI glasses cases, everything, my AI glasses itself, everything that got like clay on it, like came off with just a bit of paper towel and water really easily. So nothing to worry about. But it does get on everything. Like the girl next to me, she ended up somehow having it on her nose and on her lips. And I was like, I don't know if that's like from a drink or if she's, I should probably let her know. And I told her even at one point when I was drinking my mocktail, I was like, that was something crunchy in that one. I was like, oh, I think I just had a little bit of clay. But yeah, it was really cool. And at the end, you kind of do a tiny bit of cleaning up for them for the wheelbarrow and stuff. The wheel, just essentially getting like a giant sponge with like clean water, and then just kind of like sloshing off all the water from, there's like a hole through like that container area of like where the wheel sits, and then there's a bucket next to it, and you kind of slosh all the water in there and then kind of dry it out with the sponge, and then kind of clean it up, and then that's pretty much done for the night. But yeah, so it was a really, really fun experience. And there's going to be another event I'm talking about after this as well in one of the coming episodes. It's also another studio that I kind of will be interested to try out at some point, but they were doing like a winter market festival kind of thing. That was really cool as well. Anyway, you'll be able to see there's some stuff that I bought from that. Those two up here. Anyway, thanks so much for joining this journey. It was really cool, and I 100% recommend you should try it out at least once for the experience, and get your hands dirty, touching some clay, be good for you. And I guess I'll, as always, keep up the sunshine and stay positive. Take care of yourself, look after yourself, have a good rest when you need to, and I'll see you in the next episode.